With whom should we be showing a great deal of compassion and remorse? This is Wretched Radio. If you have been on the internet at all, you have seen the Houston Chronicle story chronicling the abuses of children in Southern Baptist Convention churches. Before we get into statistics, before we get into potential remedies and observations, let us understand what it is that we are dealing with here. The article had many anecdotes. I will share just one so that we can remember our focus primarily is on the victim. We'll work on what we should be doing as a local church, Southern Baptist or not, as parents, how we should be viewing this report, which indicates 220 people since 1998 have been convicted of or pleaded guilty to sex crimes. 20 years, 700 victims. Just one of them was Heather Schneider, 14. She was molested in a choir room at Houston's Second Baptist Church. According to criminal and civil court records, her mother said church leaders waited months to fire the attacker, who later pleaded no contest. In response to her lawsuit, church leaders denied responsibility. Really? That happened in your church building in the choir room? Nobody's responsible for this. There's a responsibility that comes with leadership. Heather slit her wrists the day after the attack in 1994. She survived, but she died 14 years later from a drug overdose that her mother blames on the trauma, stating, quote, "I never got her back." That will suffice to remind us we are talking about young people here who are being preyed upon by older people and abused and traumatized. The trajectory of their entire life has been altered. And as we read this story, before we try to figure out what to do with it, let's be thinking about the victims. And perhaps let us start there with what do we do with a report like this? Number one, we help victims. That's what we do. Is it possible that out of this 700 victims, there are some that are lying? Sure, of course that's possible. But I don't think that anybody with an ounce of common sense would say, they're all lying. This is all a charade. Furthermore, these people have been put in jail. They're on sex offender lists. So to put your head in the sand and say, well, not everybody, wrong. First and foremost, something traumatic has happened. Something bad is going down. Even if somebody is lying about a sexual assault, something bad is happening. A big lie is being told. Something is wrong. And we need to help these people, and our hearts should be with them first and foremost. No doubt there are more cases than just the 700. There's no doubt about it. Would you want to report something like that? I wouldn't. Would you want to disclose what happened to you when you were a child by an adult? Undoubtedly, there are more. So what do? We help them, we love them, and we demonstrate that love with action. Getting busy and making sure that we do everything within our control to stop this. Look, this isn't just Southern Baptists. You've got sinners everywhere, and frequently predators, they find churches to be pretty fertile ground because of the lack of policies in place to screen, to protect. And we need to start. If you're not doing that as a local church, you really have got to get in the game. This could happen in your church. There are sinners in churches, and sinful things happen. We need to get busy to make sure we do everything that we can possibly do to make sure that doesn't happen. Not accepting responsibility is not what we should be about. And that, by the way, is one of the big laments in the Houston Chronicle. Just front page blast against the Southern Baptist Convention. 220 offenders that have taken plea deals. Dozens of cases are pending. Many were convicted. We're talking pastors, ministers, youth pastors, Sunday school teachers, deacons, and church volunteers. They really had 380 credibly accused officials in the Southern Baptist Church, but they were able to verify 220. 90 of them remain in prison, and another 100 are still registered sex offenders. At least 35 church pastors, employees, and volunteers who exhibited predatory behavior were still able to find jobs at churches during the past 2 decades. Well, that's got to get fixed somehow, wouldn't you say? And sadly, a decade ago, there were some abuse victims who said, put together a registry. Have one within the Southern Baptist denomination so that you can track this. It was rejected. I suspect that plea will be heard now. Church leaders apparently, in some cases, failed to alert law enforcement officers about complaints. Can we just once and for all put an end to this? That we call the police. That's what we do. We call the authorities. You're not the district attorney. You're not going to go trying to figure out what happened. You call the police and file a report. Now, if nothing comes of it, the report goes away. But you do that because an individual who is accused of sexual assault has been removed or removed him or herself from the realm of church authority into the realm of government authority. I received an email just this morning from a woman who will obviously remain nameless, wondering what to do because she went to her pastor to say, my husband has grabbed me by the arm, punched me in the arm, leaving a bruise, gave me a shove followed by a quick grab to the throat and a threat on my life if I didn't get out of his face. Went to the pastor, and the pastor said, well, when you guys calm down, you can work on forgiveness. Wrong. We call the police and protect this woman. That's what we do. We call the police and protect this woman, which is why in our churches we should have people identified as safe harbors, whatever it happens to be. Whether it's somebody who is experiencing financial hardship, job loss, whatever. Where can they go? Where can they be safe? Who will take them in? Don't need to send out an email blast because we've already identified these people, and we call them up and say, we have a situation. Somebody's going to be moving in with you today. And we protect these people. I understand a pastor wanting to find out what happened. I get that. Call the police. Immediately, we need to implement policies like this in local churches. We immediately need to be screening people, and we immediately need to be considering how are our children exposed to these people? How does this happen in the choir room of a mega church? What happened there where that gap needs to be filled in? We got to fix this mess. What else should we be doing? We got to protect our own kids. Now, mom and dad, I think an appropriate balance needs to be struck here. I mean, when you consider the Southern Baptist Convention, 47,000 churches, 20 years, you take that times X number of volunteers. Is this something where like every church is experiencing this? No, not even close to that. But does that matter when you're one of the 700 victims? No, it doesn't. So mom and dad, reconsider the sleepovers, letting your child be alone with leaders. It doesn't have to be something where you think that the guy's a rat or a scoundrel. You're just protecting your child because that's your job. Take the Pence rule times 10 and implement it for your children. Implement the Pence rule times 50 in the churches. Let's protect our kids. And let's watch how the leaders this time respond to these accusations and startling announcement of 20 years and 700 victims of sexual abuse inside of Southern Baptist conventions. The world's going to be judging them, and we should too. The response to this shouldn't be like Pope Francis's response to their mess in the Roman Catholic Church. This should be swift, it should be definitive, it should be thorough, and it should be strong to protect children. Got to tell you, Jesus warned us. Had something to do with a stone tied to your leg. You harm one of these, what about protecting them? This is Wretched Radio.